Here we are on the Mossy River where Bill Carrier once had a cabin. If you look to the woods just right there on one of those jack pine trees, there's some sign that he made, a little sign of his cabin in the past. It's now just part, the forest has reclaimed that little point, and the cabin is just the foundations. So here we are today with Rael, myself, Solomon Carrier, sponsored by Barton Farms. Underneath you can see our toques thermos as well, and we made this trek here 20 miles from Big Eddy Camp, and it's a beautiful day, minus 25, January 2nd. My sisters are in the air right now, probably just just departing, and we're out here enjoying a cup of tea and a little lunch before we make our way back to Big Eddy Camp. So, a couple questions. When do you think was the first time that you ever came here?
I think I was about 7 years old. I think I was in grade 1. And Dad came up here, we came up the Mossy River through rapids here with his freighter canoe, and he picked up some stuff up on the cabin here, and it was still a cabin then. And then we went back down, and one of Dad's other friends was here, Lawrence Cook. He went further up the river to pick up some stuff too, and when he got back, then we left back to Big Eddy. We came up that rapids, boy, there was lots of white water there, and I thought Dad was the best guy for the rapids, boy. He just went up there like nothing, boy. He didn't hit a rock or nothing like that. He just went up there in big waves, and he just stood behind there and driving that motor. He came up here like, I thought he was the greatest dad ever. Anyway, now I'm here with Rael.
So one of the time when we were driving here, you said your dad once told you how to get your by cross country in the winter time, and you told me about how there was the ridge of willows, the open fields, and then the river. But of course, you told me in Cree. So what was that little story in Cree? What were the words?
You meeting Bapa. A pesebetin kamistapi kamwak. Kapya soga sin sagaiga na. Ngoniga tuti ten nutsaskona ni. Nagutaga tipmit sayanan mapita pegi teo. Ngoniga gaske on kapasko. Ka soga san mapasko kan matenego pa taga soga sin. Sami naga kapad magi pasko. Tigisipa nagago pa ten maskego si pige matenu go. Ngoni kapen dai kapen dau tanan masi pipa pa stig one mocha agat ki teo. Ogi utap umota wasage teo opa tamani opa tene mane teo skatagat nak kai teo utani gisas teo. Oniga wasmega titu tangi tik uta tigis panagak gutak si pias teo uga tip mitsa en gitik gonta pemi nego singitu ten ni wa no te singiti wa wani ga pisyang ni pa ok mistagi swage gospi gimeno asen demagya pa ciao. Ang itima mes ka na gan mistay niya tuskan ay Bapan magisin mit saamonan maita meesteu. Magisit katis tuteo. Wani mong utse once and mean. Umis tingin ni patche gat. Wani.
So that's the instructions that you would give in Cree to get to this spot beyond. And I myself, I've been here a few times. Haven't been here in quite a few years. The last time I was here was, I know all I remember is we were with Glenn Mackenzie and myself and my dad, and we actually were past here, and we ended up going into the ice that day. And I remember we were driving along the river, and the river is narrower there, and we kind of came to a spot, and there was a tree. I remember there's a tree in the water, or at least underneath the ice. And we kind of drove. It looked to be solid, but we drove on top of it, and then the ice gave way on the other side. That's what I remember, anyways. The last time I was here, and then we were kind of I was swimming around, and I thought it was really deep there. I guess it was kind of deep in some spots, but the spruce tree kind of blocked our fall. And anyways, I got wet, and then I went to shore, and I must have been a young man, anyways, in my early teens. And then I went to shore, and I think Glenn and my dad, they kind of made a little path, almost like a net of I think there was jack pines there and spruce trees. They made like a little net underneath this snow machine and managed to then drive it out. And after they drove it out, then we made a fire and dried off. And I think we called her a day at that specific time, and then turned around and came back. But coming up here, my dad said he used to have cabins along the way. A lot of the trappers, like staging cabins almost, just like the Sherpa has when he climbs up a mountain. Our mountain's on the land, and we go in little stages. When you're trapping this far out, 20 miles is a big distance. So it seemed to me like the cabins were kind of spaced out around about 20 miles, or maybe even more, maybe 30 miles, and you'd have another cabin. And it just made sense, because then you could go to these different staging cabins and then trap from there, and maybe spend the night if you had to, or in an emergency you could always stop at these different cabins. But now, with less people using the land, you don't see as many of cabins. Even ourselves, this is my grandpa's cabin, but it just fell out of use for whatever reason. And a lot of people are going through, a lot of families, their cabins. There once was more cabins, I imagine, along the road, but now there's nothing, or few. So that's my few thoughts. Anything else to add about this place that you've been many times?
You rarely see anybody here. It's pretty peaceful here. When I was a young guy here, when they trapped here, that time I was talking about, I believe Lawrence Cook, Nathan Satie, better known as Dolly, my uncle Jim, George Zabriskie, Mike Zabriskie were the only guys that trapped here. And before that, I guess there was the people from Pine Bluff used this river. And I think they did trap here, but I just didn't know them. Those were the guys that I knew, and they were all veterans of the Second World War. So it was really peaceful here, and still is.
You said that someone had a cabin just here, but you were showing me at one of the rapids. Was that where the Hoved Man was?
No, not that. That guy, his name was Shorty Raven. He was one of the older people that moved into the woods from somewhere in Canada, I guess, and he moved up there, decided to have a place there, and that's where he lived. And Dad knew him, and my grandpa and my grandmother kind of took care of him. He knew them, so that's who lived right there was that Shorty Raven. That's how I knew him as. He's just a guy that settled there, liked it there, I guess, and lived there right at that Mossy River.
All right, well, that's all we have for today. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you soon.